pray. Amen.
Amen. Y'all give it for Pastor Chris. They're really doing an awesome job in students. If you have a high school or junior high student and they are not in student ministries, they need to get there. It's a lot of fun. Hey, real quick, my name is Josh. I am one of the pastors here. Last service, I said I was the associate pastor, and I had two people come up afterwards and said, hey, it sounded exactly like you said sociopath when you said associate pastor. So there are people that went home for the first time yesterday going, I don't know what's at that church, but that guy up there was crazy. So I'm not, well, I don't know, would I be classified as a sociopath? I don't know. We're going to close in prayer and go home today. My name is Josh. My wife and I, Kelly, we are actually, we've been here for 11 years now, coming up in June. So it's been a lot of fun, get the fun, just to kind of watch how the church has grown over that time. Our pastor, our senior pastor, Pastor Todd, is currently in England. We'll be home next for this next Sunday's message, and you do not want to miss that next week. It's going to be a lot of fun. He is doing a couple things. One, he's actually this past week spent it in England working with some of the churches we network with there, doing some leadership training for them, and actually spoke this morning to their church there. So he'll be on his way home. We're glad to have him back, but he had a blast. If you know their family at all, Pastor Todd's and Lisa's second son, Nicholas, has an animal that is most favorite of all, and that is, anyone want to take any guesses? You know, it's your brother. Any guesses? What would be the guy's? A llama, which I thought was odd. I didn't know that. And so we're sitting there talking last week as we get ready to go in the plane. He goes, man, he said, you're not going to believe what I found. I was like, what's that? He goes, well, you know, Nicholas's favorite animal is a llama. I said, didn't know that, but cool. He goes, 5 minutes from where we are is a llama trek. You literally get to take a llama and lead it through like this trek everywhere. So he sent me a picture last week of the most satisfied kid I think I've ever seen in the world, like hugging this llama. He was just like, ah. It was precious. It was awesome. So anyway, that he got to go on the trip of a lifetime there. It was pretty cool. So he'll be back next Sunday. You do not want to miss it. But we are going through, we just started last Sunday, a series on the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs. And we are going to be going through this book through this month. And one quick side note, you're going to hear kind of throughout today's message, but all of them really because it's kind of a core to our faith. And that is, you're going to hear a lot about, we need relationships. We need people in our life that can help us and walk with us through the stages and the seasons of life. And so if you are not in a small group, you need to be in a small group. There's 3 more weeks of them that take place throughout the city, throughout the area. There's some all the way as Lacassine and Sulphur and Gillis and everywhere. And so get into a small group if you're not in one. They're awesome. Also, on your way out today, grab the devotional guide. This goes with the small groups, but it's also devotional. It is at the Connection Center. If you don't have one, they're excellent. Grab one. And there's stuff you can see that you're doing as a devotional and also for your small group. So make sure you grab one. But I want to get into the Song of Solomon. Just a little recap, first of all. First and foremost, this is a song. And Solomon, we see in the book of 1 Kings, wrote a total of 1,005 songs. That's pretty cool. And he considered this one his Song of Songs. This was his best. If you were to go and download Solomon's Greatest Hits on iTunes today, this would be track number 1. Okay, this was his song. And some of you guys are going to do that today. Solomon's Greatest Hits. Let's see, where is that? Why can I not find that? What the? And so this was his song. It's a unique song because it's a poem. It's an allegory. So an allegory is we have these word pictures. And the challenge with that for us today is a lot of these things don't make sense. So for instance, I don't recommend anyone trying to use quotes from the Song of Solomon for pickup lines. Things like, hey, your hair's like a flock of goats is not going to work. Hey, baby. I was reading through there, and my favorite one is where he tells his bride, he said, your legs are like cedar trees. And I'm trying to figure out how in any circumstance, then or now, that's acceptable. I'm like, baby, your legs are like cedar trees. They're like sparkly and things like they're sticky and prickly. And I'm like, how do you even in like ancient, why is that cedar trees? You ever touched a cedar tree? No, thank you. And so anyway, I thought that was awesome. I'm like, do not call me this week and say, hey, I tried to use Song of Solomon as a pick. It did not work. My wife is mad. Do not call me. You've been warned. So it's a lot of fun. But the great thing about it is it's a picture and really kind of a great handbook on how to navigate through the stages and the seasons of our relationships. And this one in particular, it takes us through this love relationship between Solomon and the Shulamite woman, and this is their story of this. It goes from this young love and where they first notice each other. And last week, Pastor Todd shared a message called The Art of Attraction, and just going through how they were attracted to each other, not just on physical things, but it went a whole lot deeper with that, and how they developed both who they were as individuals, but also developed that attraction, and that it went more than just looks. It was a great message. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. And then next week, Pastor Todd will again be sharing, and he's going to be sharing on how we resolve conflict. They actually have a fight. I love the fact, but the Bible does not gloss things over. And if you're reading through, also on the side note, don't probably read this with your kids. Like you got 4 and 5. Daddy, what does he mean by that? Song of Solomon is one you can read at home with your wife, doors locked. That's when you read it. Okay, but like there are some things you're sitting there and you're like going, they don't gloss over anything. And they include a fight. Like, guess what? You're going to have conflict in your life. Anybody ever had conflict with your spouse or with your friends or with people? You're going to have conflict. And so having conflict is not necessarily a bad thing, but how you resolve conflict and how you work through that in your relationships, that is the ticket. And so Pastor will be sharing about that next week, so do not miss it. Today, though, I get to deal with probably kind of I think probably for all of us, a fairly sensitive subject, and that is really the subject of dating. And when I say that, don't check out if you're already married or never planning on dating anybody ever. Like, don't check out. Like, this is something that really applies to all of us, because anytime we start a new relationship, whether it be a work relationship or even coming to here as a church, like we kind of start the same process over again. And so there's something in this, whether you're in a dating relationship right now, or whether you're married, or whether you're 70 years old and you're retired. Like, there's something in this for every single person in here. So don't check out on me. But with that, I recognize that there's a lot of hurt that comes from our past relationships. Can I get an amen on that? We've had some hurt and pain. And so I recognize this can be a very sensitive thing. So I'm going to give you a couple of ground rules, okay? First and foremost, no elbowing your spouse or your significant other while I'm talking today. Like, I told you. Don't do that, all right? You are listening for you, okay? So when we're going through all this stuff, this week, last week, this is for you first and foremost, okay? So take a moment and go, okay, how does this apply to me? Don't be amening me and giving your husband the look, ladies. Don't be doing that. Like, this is for you, okay? Secondly, and most importantly, is this. I need you to do this. I need you to look at everything we're going through today through the lens of your future, through the amplifier of your future and not your past. We have these things on stage that our guitar players use, and they're these awesome things called amplifiers. And they're awesome. If you ever watch the movie Spinal Tap, and they don't go to 11, but who's ever seen that? Like the 3 of you. Okay, all right. You guys, we'll pray for you guys later. But so, no, I'm joking. The Stonehenge is not happening today, not falling down from the sky. That's an inside joke. Nobody knows what it is. Nobody's laughing. They're all sitting there going, okay, what is he talking about? Stonehenge and numbers to 11. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, so but we have these things called amplifiers, and guitar players, they'll plug into them, and what do? They amplify the sound that's coming from that guitar. And so our past has a way of doing that, of taking things that we're playing now, moments that we're playing, and amplifying them through the lens of our past. Conversely, we can also amplify the things that are happening right now through the lens and through the amplifier of our future. And so I need you today to hit and unplug for a moment from the lens and from the amplifier of your past. And I want you to plug in to your future. I don't care how you walked into this place today. You may be in the middle of the world's worst relationship, and you can sit and go, I have screwed up everything royally. This is the worst ever. You can be in the best spot. But God has a purpose and a plan for your future and for the relationships in your future. Can I get an amen? So I want you to listen today through the lens and through the amplifier of your future, not your past. Sound good? Yeah. All right, let's jump in. Real quick, this is our theme verse. It's in Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 2 through 3. And here's what she says. This is the wife talking to Solomon, talking to her husband. She says this: kiss me and kiss me again, for your love is sweeter than wine. Now, when we see this, she's talking about a couple things. First of all, she's talking about their love, but she's also talking about love in the context of the whole, of his relationship. So what she's saying is, hey, the way you love is sweeter than wine. It's a delicious thing. Like when you get around some people, man, like there are people in this church. Is Loretta in here today? Loretta and Henry and Loretta, are they in here? They were in your first service, I think. Like, I love being around them. Why? One, they make the best food in the world. But two, man, when you get around them, they just love you. Like they're going to hug up on you and love you. And go. I love that. I love being around people whose love is sweet. It's awesome. Like when you get around some of these folks, you just want to be around them. You want to drink in them as a person. You just go, man, I just want to be around you. I want to be around. Their love, the way he loved was sweeter than wine. The way we love our kids, the way we love our spouse, the way we love our friends. How sweet is it? All right, so that's what she says first. Kiss me again, your love is sweet and wine. The second thing, how fragrant is your cologne? Your name is like a spreading fragrance, all right? That's an interesting thing. And what she's talking about there is not his smell. I remember being in junior high and spraying on everything. You know, you're trying to like cover up whatever thing you haven't taken a bath with. And you spray everything. Parents of junior hires, you know what I'm talking about. Young ladies, when you're there and you're like, well, by the time you hit junior high, you've got this figured out. But when you're like, you got the fourth grade and fifth grade girls, they will take that perfume and they're going to hose everything down. And you walk, that's not the kind of fragrance we're talking about here. We're talking about the fragrance of their life. When she's going, man, when you walk into the building, it changes. The whole atmosphere changes. When you walk into this place, it changes. It just smells better. All right? And then she says this, no wonder the women love you, but they can't have you. You're mine. She's like, hey, no wonder why. But she's looking at him and she's going, hey, I get it. I understand why people love you because the way you love and the scent and the fragrance that your life carries, it's an awesome thing. And that's what we want for our lives. We want this to be able to be said about every single one of us, that the way we love, when we walk into a place, it changes rooms, that people want to drink in our life. They want to be around us. Does that sound good? So here, let's go into this today. We're going to kind of get a front row seat into their dating relationship. And for those of you that are married, you have to maybe think back a little bit. For those of you single, it's going to be real fresh. But man, when you start off in that dating moment in life, that scene, sometimes you can sit there and you can kind of feel, especially if you're really single at the moment, you can kind of feel like that unclaimed baggage going around the airport little thing. You're like, someone pick me, take me home, please. Just going around. You ever seen that little suitcase? You go, man, I really feel sad for that suitcase, man. And so that's how we feel, right? Am I talking right? Like that's how we feel. We're just like, please, will anybody take me? And it can feel like that. And so we have this thing in us where we're just like, man, like we want to be in a relationship. And the world tells us, number one, that we're supposed to be, but also the world tells us that it has a way to do relationships. The world has a way. God has a way too. That's really kind of what we're talking about today. But the world has a way of doing relationships, and here's how it works. When you're in the world's way, it starts off like this. It's guy meets girl, and if you're under 30, you're meeting them on an app, and you're like, swipe left, swipe right. Oh, goodness, no. And so like you're going back and forth, and you're trying to find the right person. So then what happens is the guy takes the girl on a date, and the girl orders this big old plate of food, and the guy's like, how in the heck am I going to pay for that? I mean, she picks the most expensive thing on the menu. Like, I know, someone's laughing over there because they've done it. Like, yeah, let's see, what can I bilk you for? Let's see, filet mignon, shrimp. And so they order the most expensive thing, and the guy has to pay for it, and then they end up at someone's house, and they start kissing, and it goes from there, and before long, they're starting to play house, and girl has guy move in. And they continue on like this for a while, and they're playing house, and everything's going good, and then all of a sudden something happens. And things go south, and they split, and they go their own way, and guy meets another girl, and girl meets another guy, and this cycle repeats, and then it goes around again, and it goes around again, and they keep going through this cycle of relationships until one day, guy meets special girl, and girl meets special guy, and they get married, and everything's great until about 5 years into it when it all falls apart, and they're divorced, and they're sitting there trying to figure out, why did this happen? Why did this work this way? This was the one. You know what I'm talking about? We're like, this is the one. This was the one for me. And why did it fall apart? And the reason is because we always end up playing like you practice. You will play like you practice. I wish it were not true, but it is the reality of our life in every aspect. You're going to play like you practice. We do this, by the way, we understand this in our sports. This is like, baseball, by the way, here is God. I'm just telling you, in Southwest Louisiana, I've never been in a spot where baseball is more of an idol than here. I'm just like, what is wrong with you, Pete? Who's the baseball people in here? No one's gonna raise their hand. Okay, there's a few. All right. I'm just telling you, baseball's like, it's like God, baseball. Let's see. We understand this with sports. We start our kids off, they are young. Like, they are getting screamed at in T-ball for missing that ball. They're like, what are you doing? You missed it. You're 3 years old. Run faster. We understand this in our academics. We pushed our kids. I have 5 kids in school, and the amount of homework is enough to make a preacher cuss. And so you're just like going, what is wrong? Like, we understand this in every area of our life, that you will end up playing like you practice. But when it comes to relationships, we tell people, just go out, have fun, hook up with whoever, because you're going to have to settle down someday, so you might as well get it all out now before you have to get tied down, and that's it. And life's terrible. That's what we tell people. That's what we tell ourselves. That's what the world tells us. But what if we were to take that same energies and efforts and reverse that, and put the hard stuff in now, and do the hard work now, and do the right things now, and so that we can enjoy the benefits of that years down the road. There are people that I love in this church. I love being around. Some is Beverly in here, and I don't know if she's in here now, but she and Olin come to our small group, and they've been married for, 70 years, 60 years, I don't know, they've been married forever. I love having them at our house and in our small group. Why? Because there is such a depth and a relationship, and it is like drinking a really good glass of wine. When you're around them, you're just like, man, I want what they have. You ever been around people that are 60, 70, 80 years old? They've been married for a long time. You go, I want what they've got. The way they got there is they understood earlier than most of us did that they play like they practice. And so that's if you take nothing home today, understand that you are going to play like you practice. I'm going to jump out of the Song of Solomon for a moment and bring up a verse in Ecclesiastes 3. And this is kind of a theme verse for where we're going to go for the next 15 minutes here this morning. And that is this. Solomon says this. It's a Beatles song. Anybody know the Beatles song for this one? Anybody can sing it? No one wants to sing it? If I had a $5 Starbucks gift card? I don't, but just, okay. So there's a Beatles song that actually says this. Everything, turn. There's a season and a time for every activity under heaven. There is a season. Here's what I want you to get out of this verse. There is a season for everything. But not everything happens in every season. Some of you need to hear that. There is a season for everything, but not everything happens in every season. My dad one time was having a conversation with a guy out of Arizona, and I'm a North Dakota boy. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan and will always be, no matter what all of you Saints fans say. But you can be thankful I'm not a Cowboys fan, so there's that. Those poor Cowboys. So I grew up in North Dakota, and my dad was talking one day to this guy, and they were comparing notes as to who lived in the better place, the guy in Arizona versus my dad in North Dakota. And my dad said, well, what do you guys do in the summer? He said, well, it gets really hot. I guess we just stay inside in front of the air conditioner. And Dad's like, okay. He's like, what do you guys do in the winter? And Dad's like, well, we stay inside in front of the heater. It's snowy outside, so we're going to stay inside. And he's like, yeah. And the guy's like, I guess we're pretty much about the same then, just different seasons. And Dad goes, nah. He said, I got one up on you. And the guy's like, what? He said, I can always put more on and go outside, but you can only take so much off before you get the cops called on you. There's a guy walking around here buck naked. So there is a season. You're not going out. You're not going to be able to do everything in every season. You can't be swimming at the lake when it's frozen over solid. And so there is, though, everything has a season. And in our relationships and the way we do things and the way that God has it laid out, there is a season for everything and every desire that you have in your life. The things that God's placed in there's a spot for them. We're going to look at, as we go through their relationship, their dating relationship, there's kind of three things that happened in this moment. And there's three, I guess you could call them seasons that took place. First, I want you to look into Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 8. And again, this is not just for dating. This happens every time we start a relationship. Every time we get into a relationship with something, someone, somewhere, organization, whatever, this thing kind of restarts, all right? So look real quick at 2 verse 8. It's in your app if you have it. And here's what she says. This is a girl. She goes, I hear my lover coming. He's leaping over the hill, over the mountains, bounding over the hill. She sees him coming. She's like, whoo, there he is. And there's what she says next. I love this line. Cracks me up. Nope. Can't do it. Next line. There we go. My lover is like a swift gazelle or a young stag. Guys, how many of you wish your wife or significant would call you a young stag? Anybody besides me? You lie. There should be hands up all over. You guys are lying in here today. Here's what already happened, someone said. We're going to altar call for lying later on too. But okay, so here's the thing. Here he is behind the wall. She's looking. She goes, man, there he is. Here's my boy. She's like, mama. I always think about this thing for like someone's like, 16 years old. And she's like, he's fine. He's coming to pick me up. He's hot. All right. She wants him. He's cute. All right. And look, he's behind the wall. He's pulling up in his car. He's driving through. He's looking through the window. She's like, where's she at? I know she's good. Please look cute. He's driving up and he's trying to figure. peering in the window. So he's not peeking Tom. He's showing up here. All right, next verse. And there's what he says. He says, come on. My lover said to me, he walks in the door. Rise up, come with me, my darling. Let's go to Waffle House. All right, we're going on a date. Please don't do that. If you're on a first date, do not take your girl to Waffle House. We went this past, dear Lord. We love Waffle House in our family. We actually went for my son's 11th birthday. We went down to Waffle House for he wants where he wanted to go. So we go in and we're eating there. And the ladies are like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, your whole family's here? And we have 1 million. There's 5 kids. There's 1 million of us. And they're like, we're here for his birthday. And they were floored by that. But when you go to Waffle House, you don't go in there expecting it to be, any other, it's not P.F. Chang's we're walking into here, like we're expecting certain things. There was a guy that did this little thing. If you ever go look at it, you can look it up online, and just look up for Waffle House and Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And this guy's up there, and he read this article. He's a little comedian dude. Read this article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution where they were talking about how the Waffle House had failed health inspection. And to which he said, duh! Like, what'd you expect? This Waffle House, man, like, we don't go there because it's the cleanest place. We go there because we want our 2 eggs, our biscuits, our waffle. That's what we're going there for. And so he starts going through all this different stuff. So I went there for breakfast the other day, which I love. And I'm looking around, I'm just going, yeah. Like, there's the waffle mix coming down, the waffle thing over here, and there's some eggshells on the floor over there. I love it. Why? Because I love the food. But we don't go into Waffle House, like, with these blinders on, assuming it's going to be perfect. But guess what she's doing right here? She's coming in. When you start talking stuff like, that's my young stag, that's a stud, and he's like looking around, they're coming into this season, I guess you could call it the season of perfection. Everything, that's in your notes, the season of perfection. Everything is perfect. It's just perfect. You can't see any flaws. You can't see anything that's going on. This is absolutely perfect. They are perfect. They are the one. They are awesome. Anybody ever been there besides me? Your first crush, hello. Like you spend hours. Who's old enough to remember the phones with like the actual cables, and you would like go into the closet and close the door and you're calling? Anybody do that? I'm really old now. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Who's never done that? Okay, who's thank you for all you young people. Okay, I'm gonna go home and cry today. So this is the season of perfection. And they're coming into this thing, everything is perfect. They have these blinders on. And the problem with that is sometimes we get blind to the reality of what's going on. Because guess what? Not everything is perfect. Not everyone is perfect. You entered this season of perfection when you came to this church too, because you're going to come in and go, man, this place is great. These guys are awesome. And then after a while, you'll be here for a while, you start going, oh man, I kind of did that wrong over there. I don't know about that. The pastor just said he was a sociopath. Like, I mean, there's things you're going to start noticing, and you're like, what is, like, we do that with the people that are close to us too. I mean, wives, how many of you realize now that your husbands are not perfect? We've got that spot where we realize, okay, husbands, how many of you realize your wives are not perfect? Don't wager, Dane. Somehow I knew Dane was going to raise his hand. The rest of y'all passed that test. You guys will be fine, but Dane's sleeping on the couch tonight. Oh, man. Dear Lord. Okay. But we realize, it's true. We realize that people aren't perfect. This person that I married, like you wake up the next day after, you're like, whoa, that's what you look like without makeup. And like, we have these things. You laugh because it's true. You've had that thought. Brush your teeth for the love of God, please. We realize real quick that they are not perfect. And so then we sit there and go, man, how do I get, and so what do we do though in these moments when everything's perfect? What do we do? How do we safeguard ourselves? 3 quick rules I want to give you real quick, just for safeguarding yourself and your life and your heart while you're in this season where everything's perfect. Okay, real quick. First one is this. You got to limit your time, and if you have notes, I'd write kind of beside it, I'd write alone. Limit your time alone. When you're in this stage where everything is perfect, you need to do things in groups. Get with people. Why? Because when you're alone, you just end up doing things that sabotage that relationship ultimately. That's just the truth of it all. When we are alone with someone at this stage of things, we go places, we start doing married things when it's not time for married things. And inadvertently, I hate to say it, but that's how we poison our relationships for the future. And so you need to do things in groups with people. There's really nothing, well, I guess there's really nothing that we can't, like, that you can't do in a group. Well, nothing you shouldn't do in a group. I mean, like, there's like only one thing we can't do in a group setting. And so do things in groups with people. Go out there. We need to limit limit our time alone. If you're in this stage, you need to spend time getting to see how they interact with the people around them. Who are their friends? What are their friends like? Girls, how does he treat his mom? That's a really good sign of what you got. How does he treat his mom? How does he treat his sisters? Guys, how does she treat her dad? How does she treat her brothers? How does she interact with her family? You need to know these things when you're building these relationships. This is the same true in our work environments as well. What are these people like that we're working with, that we're connecting with? Who are they? How do they interact with people? You got to know, you got to limit your time with people, all right? Second thing, you need to limit your talk. Guys, this is probably more for us than anything, but man, for all of us, you need to make sure you're not saying things that you're not ready to back up. Guys, we're really good about saying things, coming in and going and saying, man, I love you, I love you, I love you, but we're not ready to put the rubber where the road is. We're not ready to put our money where our mouth is. We're not ready to say I do, because it's really just you want. We need to limit our talk. Ladies, you need to limit what you're listening to. You need to limit what you're saying to each other. You need to guard those things. Guard those things. Guard the things that are coming out of our mouth. Guard our talk. There's the third thing in this, and this is probably my favorite, is limit your touch. Limit your touch. And here's the thing, like, I get it, okay? Like, I get it. When you are pulling up there and she is coming out, she is looking fine. You're like, oh, you want to touch. Am I right? No one's saying nothing. Everyone's quiet. They're like, do I say something? I'm going to get hurt right now. Don't lie. Like, you're going, like, there's these desires that we have. And guess what? They are actually God-given desires. Those desires are God-given desires. It's right desire, but it's wrong time. Okay? There's a song, when you think about this moment, I thought about this today. You got that song ready to go, Jared? We're thinking about that first time you see her. Hit the song. Go for it. Anybody know it?
There she was, just walking down the street singing.
Who does not know this
Tapping
song?
her fingers and shuffling her feet singing. She looked good, she looked fine, she looked good, she looked fine, and I nearly lost my mind before I knew
Is that what
she
happens,
was
though?
walking.
She comes walking down the stairs and you lose your mind. She's like, she's hot. Like, we want to touch. But these are the moments that we have to limit our touch. Why? Because this is the season where everything's perfect. We think everything is right and good and all. Man, you have to guard this moment in your life. You have to guard it. There's actually a better theme song for this moment. You ready? Hit it.
You can't touch this. You can't touch this.
Come on.
You can't touch
All
this.
right, guys, all right. That's our theme song right now for this moment.
Can't
Can't touch this. Man, I tell you what. No, these are the moments when we're in these stages, we have to limit our touch. Limit your time alone specifically. Limit your talk and limit your touch. There's a reason why, though. You're safeguarding something. You're safeguarding something, all right? Here's the thing. When I several years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Bible college, and I was going to school in Florida, and a friend of mine from Minnesota came down. Her name was Ange, and just a very dear friend, and she actually moved down from Minnesota. We were both going to the same school at the same time. And so when two friends move from North Dakota, Minnesota, down to Florida, and are going the same place together, guess what everyone back home assumes? You're supposed to start dating and hook up. They're like, hey, they're going to get married. Like, same church, same friends, all this stuff. And so we would come home on Christmas vacation and be hanging out with all of our friends, and I literally had a friend of mine go, hey, when are you and Angie going to start dating? In front of her. Well, that's not obvious. Thanks, appreciate that. And I never, never felt the release, the peace of God to pursue that relationship. She's a great friend, beautiful person. And I would ultimately deploy with the military, go overseas, and come back and start working at a church in Houston. Ange married this incredible dude named Nick, and they would start pastoring a church in Arkansas. And a few years later, they had a situation there, and they ended up leaving Arkansas. It was a difficult situation for them, where things just weren't as it seemed on the church side. And so where do they move? They moved to Houston, where I'm on staff at with a church, because their pastor was my pastor. And so now I'm sitting across the table from a girl who's been a good friend of mine for years, And I'm sitting there going, God, thank you that I limited my time, my talk, and I did not touch. Because now I'm having to do relationship with a friend of mine who I've known for years. You know how awkward that would be? What? And so there are reasons why we stay. Here's the thing. The people that you are interacting with right now, especially if you're single, but really for all of us, that's somebody else's spouse. That's somebody else's spouse. The person that you're dating right now, unless you've got a ring on there and it's like weird, that is somebody else's spouse. And so you need to treat that person as you would want somebody to be treating your spouse right now, because someone is. Someone's out there dating your spouse right now. If you're single, someone's out there, your spouse is out there somewhere. And so I need to treat the people in my life as if they were somebody else's spouse. Is that good? Clear? All right. Next, we're going to roll these real fast because I'm already out of time. I'll be in trouble. All right. The next thing is this. Look at chapter 2, verse 11. Here's what he said. Look, the winter is past. The rains are over and gone. You see the language right there? It's a season. Being up in North Dakota, when we hit wintertime, not much happened. You know where we spend our time? We spend our time inside. In this season of preparation, this is a time in your life when you're going through the spot, guess where you need to be working? On the inside. We spend so much of our time looking outside, but in this moment, in this season, we need to spend our time inside. Your spring, this time when we want to enter into these relationships and enjoy all that love has to offer, your spring is only going to be as good as your preparation. Some of y'all need to write that down. Your spring is only going to be as good as your preparation. Look at what it says in verse 14. She's talking about her man. She says, my dove is hiding behind the rocks, behind an outcrop on the cliff. Let me see your face. She says, let me hear your voice, for your voice is pleasant, your face is lovely. She's not talking, by the way, here about his physical face. What she's talking about, when you see the word face, she's talking about his character, who he is. What he had done to get this point is he had spent time in the winter season working on who he was. He had spent time in hiding. He wasn't out doing crazy stuff. He was working on who he was. And so guess what? When it got time to the springtime, she noticed. She noticed. Your face, your character is awesome. Young men, if you want to have the awesomest girl of your life, be a man. Grow into the character that God has for you. You need to grow into who God. Young ladies, if you want the right one, become the right one. So that's actually really the next thing. What do we do in the season of preparation? It's not about finding the right person. We have to become the right person. You have to become the right person. If someone, I heard this week, if someone can complete you, then when they leave, guess what happens? You're incomplete. And we say that, we're like, oh man, you complete me. But if that person is the thing that completes you, when they're gone, you're going to be incomplete. What's better is for you to actually become the person that God intended you to be. And so when that person comes along, it's not two people who are part ways empty, but it's two people who are completely full of God, pursuing him and joining, God joins together. When that happens, it's an amazing thing. All right? Actually, did you see my little card this morning? You did. Today is 13 years ago today, I called that girl for our first date. I thought about that. I was getting ready and I was like, and we were both 27. And so I get sometimes when we're in these moments, when we're in these seasons, and I'm very glad, by the way, I waited that long. And I'd known her for a long time and got a chance to walk through some of this stuff. But man, I was nervous as all get out, by the way. I was like, I hope she says yes, because this is going to be really weird. And so that's what happened. But man, you think about all this stuff. It's hard. Like, I get it. It is very hard. But in these moments when we're waiting on the process, and 27 years old is a long time. I'm glad I did. But when you're in these processes, we have to become the right person. You know, it's tough. You're sitting there sometimes. You ever been at like the funeral and your friend or your great aunt sitting there next to your aunt? She's like, you're next. Have you ever had that happen? When you get to be 27, by the way, everyone tries to set you up. Wedding? That's the what? I said, wedding. Sometimes, no, just kidding. Sociopath, and I went to, okay. We're going to close in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the front row. No, I'm kidding. All right, so you go to a wedding. You ever been to a wedding and someone's like, hey, you're next? The joke was you're supposed to stay to them when you go to a funeral. Guess what? You're next. That's what you do. That's where I was supposed to go with that, but it's really wrong in my head. We're going to close in prayer right now. There's no way you can recover from that. No, here's where we go. We got to become the right person. The next thing is we got to walk in love. We don't fall in love. We walk in love. We say we're going to fall in love like it's some sort of ditch. Okay? I'm walking in love. Oh, there we go. I'm in love. No, we have to choose to walk in love with each other. And this applies to every single one of our relationships. I have to choose to walk in love. There's a story that a guy shared with me a few years back. As a doctor who was from India. And his wife had passed away, and his family brought him from India his new bride. And a pastor friend of mine said, how do you do this? And he said, you silly Americans. He said, you marry the ones you love. He said, but you know what? He said, I'm loving the one that was chosen. I'm loving the one I choose. And we have to choose to walk in love in your relationships, in your marriage. Like, there's a lot of feelings that go with it, but love is still, at the end of the day, love is a choice. I gotta choose to walk in love. The next thing is I can't fix my hopes and dreams on another person, but I have to fix my hopes and dreams on God. Well, a lot of times we put God-sized expectations on people. They're not God. The person you're dating, the person you're attracted to, that's not God. We have to put our hopes and our dreams on God. The last season, TJ, you can come on up, is this. This is the season of purity. In verse 15 of chapter 2, Solomon's actually talking now, and he says this. He says, catch all the foxes, those little foxes before they ruin the vineyard of love. For the grapevines are blossoming. What would happen in these times is these foxes would come in and they would nibble at the fruit before it was actually fully formed. And this verse has two meanings. Obviously, they're dealing with the relationship side of it. But when you look through the Song of Solomon, the word vineyard actually refers to the physical body as well. And he's literally talking about foxes in our life that come in and they're taking things in our life from our bodies. They're taking things before it's time, before it's the right moment. They would come in and these little foxes would nibble at things before things had fully formed. This verse is a lot more meaning than that. And so when we look at this, there are things in our life that we have to catch the foxes. We have to start setting up some fences in our life to catch these foxes, that we're not letting things come in and destroy our relationships, destroy our lives, destroy the things that, guess what? Do you guys know what grapevines do? They produce what? Grapes. And then grapes, in this case, make what? Wine. There's a process that goes into making wine. They have to protect it and watch these vines come up, and there's certain conditions that have to be met. And these grapes get produced, and then once these grapes are produced, guess what happens to them? They get crushed. There's sometimes our hopes and our dreams and the things that we thought were awesome get crushed. But it's part of the process of God. And just like our lives, we go through this process of crushing, and God begins to pour out this love of ours and these hopes and these dreams into this flask, into this bottle. And then it sits there for a while, and sometimes we sit there and go, man, is this ever gonna happen? Is this ever gonna work? Am I ever gonna meet the person? Am I ever gonna get there? And that love has to do what? It has to just sit there. And it grows. It's the same way in our marriages. The longer they last, the longer they go, the sweeter they become. And God designed that, intended it, but if we allow these foxes, these things in our life to come early, and I get it, it's a tough place. It's a tough place to walk this out. I get it. It's hard. But the promise and the hope that God has for us, the reality is that if we can walk this out, if we can keep the foxes from destroying these vines in our life, the end result is what we saw in verse 2. It's a love that's sweeter than wine. It's something that the people around us and our kids and our grandkids and the relationships and their friendships get to drink from. It's an awesome thing. So how do we catch these things? How do we catch these foxes? Real quick. Number one, I got to put parameters around my passions. Guess what? We all have passions that are outside the purpose and the will of God. If you are a human, there are things that you have passions for that are not godly sometimes. I have to put parameters around my passions. A fire, by the way, is only as great as its containment. If we go home, we have a fireplace, we're gonna sit there and we're gonna snuggle up by it. If we have a fire pit, we're doing s'mores. But if you have a forest fire, it's gonna destroy everything. A fire, and we all have fires in our lives. These fires are burning, and they're gonna burn, but they need to burn in the right place. Fire's the only good as containment. put parameters. Second thing I've got to do, I have to use my family as a safeguard. And a family is literally anyone around you. And by the way, family, you need to be watching out for your family. You need to be safeguarding them. There's things that you're, from your kids all the way up, like there are things that your kids are being exposed to that are just crazy. My son and I had a conversation this week, and I was like, your kids are talking about what in school? We need to safeguard each other. Be a safeguard. By the way, little side note, the groomsmen and bridesmaids were actually not originally for photographs. Who knew? They actually were there to guard the bride and the groom during the process of engagement. They would literally walk around, and you actually see this, by the way, if you look in Song of Songs, chapter 3, they literally surround Solomon with swords. These were his groomsmen. And so we need to be that for our friends, for our family. The last thing is this, and this is really the crux of all today is this. I have to let Jesus make all things new. I have to let Jesus make all things new. Every single one of us in here, I don't care who you are, every single one of us in here, we've made mistakes relationally. We've screwed it up. We said things, we've done things, we've let foxes come in, we've all done stuff. And what I said at the very beginning is so important. You have to let Jesus make all things new. You have to look and listen at all this through the lens and through the amplifier of your future, not your past. I love what Jesus did in John 8. When the woman came to him, actually they brought to him this woman who was caught in adultery. And he said this, he said, I don't condemn you. Go and sin no more. And if you walk in this place, do not walk out of here condemned. We serve a Lord and Savior who loves you very much. And he's saying, I don't condemn you. I don't condemn you. I have a new hope and a new future for you. We need to let Jesus make all things new. Last but not least, Song of Songs, verse 5 in chapter 3. She says this, she says, don't awaken love until it's time. If you leave here today, the thing I want you to take away from this thing is that there are all these things that we have. There's a season for everything. But there's a right feeling and there's also a right season. Let's get our feelings in the right seasons. Don't let your feelings take you out and get into the wrong season. Have your feelings stay in the right seasons because the result of that, the fruit of that, is an awesome thing. I read this week, or heard this week, a study, and marriages in America, there's about between a third and a 50% chance of failure is what they tell us. So roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of marriages are going to end in divorce. That's some terrible odds. We wouldn't take those odds anywhere else. We're going to go down to the airport today and they're going to say, hey, one of these 3 planes is going down, pick one, have fun. You're not getting on the plane. Am I right? But we take those odds every single day to our marriages. They did a study and they found this. They found that if a couple would pray together, discuss the Bible together, and go to church together, this is a secular university. This is not a Christian organization. This was Ivy League. They found that you had a 1 in 1,126 chance of failure. That's a big odd shift. I like those odds. If I put God first, and that's our last point, the key in all this thing, the key to great relationships is a God-first life. If I put God first in my life, in my marriage, I've got a 1 in 1,126 chance of failure. That's some pretty darn good odds. I guess God does know what he's talking about. He does. So I want to pray for you real quick. Why don't you just bow your heads? We're going to leave in just a moment. I want to pray for really kind of 2 groups of people. And the first is probably really, honestly, all of us. If you're sitting here in this place and you're saying, you know what, Pastor, there are places in my life where I've not put God first in my relationships. I've allowed foxes to come in and destroy things in my life. I've maybe not limited my touch. I've maybe not limited my talk, my time. I haven't put the parameters on my passions that I need to. And Pastor, I want to do it different starting today. I want Jesus to make all things new in this part of my life. If that's you, you're going, I need to make all things new. I want you just to raise your hand. Go ahead, put them up. We're going to pray real quick. God, I just pray for every single hand raised right now. And there's a lot, Lord, because it's all of us, really. Lord, we've made mistakes. And God, I pray just today that in our relationship, every single hand that's raised, God, that you would do new things in our hearts, in our lives, God, that we would trust you, we'd follow your plan, and that you would make all things new. And the second group of people I want to pray for is this. If you're in this place, you go, and you know what? I've never actually started this relationship with Jesus, because that's where it works. The key to all of this is a God-first life. And if you're going, I need to today to start that relationship with Jesus, I want you to put your hand up. I want to pray for you right now. Put your hand up. I need to start that relationship with Jesus. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. You can put your hands down. We're going to pray together. I want everybody just to repeat after me. Dear Jesus, I come to you today, and I acknowledge that I messed up. I've made a mess of things. I haven't done things your way. And Lord, I ask you to forgive me. Jesus, I ask that you would make me new today. That you would give me a hope and a future. Lord, help me to know you better. And thank you for the life that you give me. For the home I have in heaven. And the purpose I have right here, right now on earth. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. Give those folks a hand. We're going to get out of here. It went a little long. I'm sorry. You can throw things at me later, but Pastor's faster, so we'll be back next week. But real quick, if you need prayer about anything, our prayer team, they're going to be right here. You guys can go now to the crosses. If you need prayer for anything, go visit them. They've been praying for you already. You can go see them. They'll be at the crosses. Pastor Todd's back next week, so you do not want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to pray for you one last time. We're going to get here. Lord God, just be with us. You guys can stand up. God, I pray just a blessing over every single person relationship here. Lord, that you would be with us as we go from this place. Help us to love the way you love. In Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Have a great week.